Alright, let's take the things we've learned in the previous sections, previous module sections, let's actually apply them here by looking at a few different case studies. Let's begin by looking at China, the population geography of China, a very relevant location that is often in the news and will continue to be in the news in our lifetimes. China has more people than the combined population of Europe, North America, South America, and Japan. So obviously there is a large population found in China, but we'll look at some different characteristics that are going to make 21st century China much different than 20th century China. Population Pyramid China 1995. So let's look at some obvious characteristics of this population pyramid. You can see that there was this period of large population growth. You can see how it really becomes exaggerated there in the 45 to 25 age categories. Also, you can see that there, with that steady growth, that there was a sudden, abrupt shift, a transition, a decrease in birth rates noticed by that 10 to 15-year-old population being much fewer than their older and younger generations. And then finally, you notice a very large sex ratio imbalance. And so we look at how much of this red box on the left is filled in, how much is the red box on the right filled in. Because if you look at the scale, they both represent the 42 to 56 million population quantity level. And you can see that there's definitely more blue inside that red box than there is pink in that red box on the right, illustrating that there's a sex ratio imbalance. And so here are some characteristics of population pyramids, of some things that look interesting. Let's find out why. What caused these patterns? Looking now at 2010 right now, we can see those 20 and their younger 20s, a very large sex ratio imbalance. Look how many more males there are than females in that red box, in that what we would say the younger 20, the college-age kids of China. But if we look at China, yeah, it's the largest population in the world. Yeah, it's a big contributor to overall population growth. But if we look at the pattern, it looks like it's transitioning. And according to this projection, it will transition. So this is part of China moving from developing country to developed country. So China is seeing a very rapid rural to urban migration, which is very typical of these stage 3 countries. And in the future, maybe China will have a stabilizing population, and this will kind of give further credence to the idea that India will soon be larger than China in terms of population. We'll get to India in a minute. But we can see that baby boom, that large population growth in 2025, that cluster there in their 60s, they're going to be at the retiring age. So one of the things we're going to see in China, just like we're seeing right now in the United States, is this increasingly aging population. Some key stats about China, population-wise: 1.29 billion people today. By 2050, that should be about 1.5. So a stabilizing of the population looks pretty evident. Ideas we got going on here: 1980s, there were 14 to 17 million people added each year, and this has definitely gone down quite considerably. We'll look at why this is the case in a future slide. One of the characteristics, very much stage 3, rapidly urbanizing. Right now it's 35% urban, but it's moving very quickly. It's having a very large rural to urban migration. It's one of the largest migrations happening currently in the world is population within China moving to its cities. Further, there was a very interesting statistic. There are more Chinese women in their reproductive age than there is in the entire population of the United States. So, yep, their population growth rate is definitely slowing down, but the numbers are still going to be there. You've got so many women who are just in their reproductive years, and so even if they have 1-2 children, it's definitely going to leave its impact on population globally. Well, once again, we see the J curve. This is very much similar to what we saw previously, but now we're just looking at China. And China had these two kind of spurts. This initial one that happened in the late 1700s. And a lot of this is related to the age of exploration. What we had here was sailors from Europe, from Asia, even Africa, who was trading with China now. So you had more diversified diets as you had more worldly foods, more foods from Europe that brought a healthier diet, but also more diversified diet than caused population growth. And so we kind of had the agricultural revolution occurring here in China at the time. But then we had this next wave. And this next wave is very much related to political factors in the case of Mao Zedong. We'll talk about Mao Zedong and the Communist Revolution in China post-1949 on the following slides. And I already stated this, but here's verbiage of my previous slide statements. But after 1949, what we had the role of Mao Zedong, the leader in China at the time, and one of the ideas he had was he wanted to encourage a large population. He felt like a large population meant a larger workforce, more people working, more money being generated. Also, this was seen as a way to compete against Soviet Union and United States. We look at after World War II, Soviet Union and United States definitely emerged as the two dominant powers, and so this was seen as a way to offset, as offer an alternative is what's just simply outnumber them, kind of a simple military strategy. And so what he did was he encouraged women, do your patriotic deed. Breed for the motherland was one of the quotes. And so he encouraged population growth, and we can see the impact of actual one individual and their policies causing a very large population growth in China during this 1949 to mid to late 1970s period. Like every good dictator, they eventually die, and so when Mao died, a new policy was enacted, and this was Deng Xiaoping. And he saw, okay, that breed for their motherland, that had some negative, definitely some tenuous consequences. And so he actually encouraged a population control called the one-child policy. And this was originally seen as a short-term measure, and it definitely varied from place to place. It was definitely encouraged more in urban areas, rural areas where you need more people working out in fields, a little bit less enforced. But the main idea here was this was to move China to a small family society. That breed for the motherland caused all these mouths that we had to feed now here in China. Not so much we, but anyway. And so what we had here was an economic reform during a period of stagnation. So this was seen as, okay, let's kickstart the economy. And the idea towards a small family society was, let's increase the standard of living for each individual, and to do that, let's have smaller families. There was definitely some incentives that kind of forced you as a Chinese soon-to-be parent to decide, well, let's just have that one. Let's just stick to one, because if you had a second, you had to pay an extra fee, or you might have lost health and education benefits, and so it definitely paid to have only one child. There's some propaganda that came out of this one-child policy. Here is this promotion, and I had a Chinese TA from 2006, and this was her translation. This is Mandarin up here in the left. What this is encouraging is a one-child family, evident in this poster, and it says, "Sweet be this." That's the translation according to my Chinese teaching assistant. More propaganda that came out of this one-child policy. Here, one child being lifted up, and this is very patriotic. Do your national deed. Then it became a little bit more enforced, a little bit more, let's say, less politically correct. You better have only one child, this sign says. And then we get really politically incorrect. One more baby means one more tomb. And then houses toppled, cows confiscated, if abortion demand rejected. These are translations to some promotions from once again, the one-child policy. But eventually they realized that, okay, this is a little too harsh. This kind of is a little bit too over the top as far as our promotion of this one-child policy, and so they became a little bit more politically correct. Here, Mother Earth is too tired to sustain more children. And then dealing with the sex ratio issue, now that we had one child, so if in a male-dominant society plus ultrasound technology, you would have an abortion if you were going to have a girl. So now they wanted to combat that and say both boys and girls are parents' hearts. Some impacts of the one-child policy, looking at 1979 to more recent times, definitely a fertility rate decline, 2.93, nearly 3 children per woman, now 1.7. Also a sex ratio increase. 1979, for every 100 females, there were 106 males. 2001, for every 100 females, now 117 males. A lot of this is, like I said, abortions due to ultrasound technologies where you can already, at an early stage, identify the sex of the child. Also, you do have a good amount of underreporting of female births. And so they went ahead and had their child, but just didn't report it to the government. And so that's one of the issues is you have a lot of these, what they refer to as missing females, girls who weren't registered. Also, you have an old age dependency increase. That's one of the issues in China is they're going to have a very quickly, very aging population. What are they going to do about it? Definitely what we're facing with that here in the United States, but on the little bit more long term, it's going to be an issue in China. This is just an interesting photo. Just as a rural village, what they did was kind of illustrating the male-dominant society. They went until they got a boy. Issues in China. How will a shortage of females affect China? By 2020, there will be 30 million more males. Social instability for sure. Those with lower incomes or little skill sets, education, are going to have difficulty finding wives. And so you're going to have an issue of having a lot of males who are unemployed, who are at the bottom edge of the spectrum. That many would say that could be appetite for some violence. Other issues, other positive issues, you could say, is poor women, women from more rural villages, women that typically come from lower status families can now marry up because they're more in demand because there's essentially just a fewer supply compared to how many males there are. Also, is you get males that are buying brides from North Korea and Vietnam, and so we're seeing a little bit of an impact of a sex trade industry developing because of this looming issue of having so many more males than females, especially at that younger population, 20 to 30-year-olds. Now we have a graph illustrating old age dependency issues in China on the horizon. So what's going to happen in China with all these older folk? Number of 60-year-old and over will jump from 143 million to 430 million by 2040. Keep in mind, current U.S. population is 300 million. 30% of the total population of China by 2040 will be over the age of 60. With the one-child policy, kind of interesting what it's going to also cause is one child will be supporting 2 parents and 4 grandparents. And so this is definitely going to put stresses on Social Security systems when you have this inverse system where you have one child supporting all their grandparents and both their parents. Another thing that isn't really thought of too much, but you get the one-child policy, and so you have a lot of only children. And as an only child, I know the different characteristics that make us unique. Let's say one of the issues is you have a lot of pressure put on that one child. One of the issues you have is definitely have high suicide rates amongst teenagers, amongst young people in China, due to that high amount of pressure as they go from piano to math to sports to English to math to track to soccer to whatever. One of the things that I no longer, don't ask me, I don't have any connections, but a lot of college students are finding is actually families, because they realize that English is becoming very important for their child to know and to learn. They're actually hiring American students to come over and just talk, just to Not so much to get out the chalkboard and start writing telling what a gerund is, what a participle phrase is, but more just speaking English, talking slang language, OMG, LOL, explaining what those terms are. Those are things that actually families are paying decent money for. Further, you have generations that lack siblings, aunts, uncles, cousins, brothers, and sister-in-laws when you have only just one child. So you don't have sisters, and then that's, I don't have a large family, but those of you who do, imagine if you didn't have that network of aunts, uncles, cousins, and so forth. Next up, India. In India, definitely stage 2, we can see this very pyramidal shape. And once again, we see a very dramatic sex ratio imbalance. Many more males than females in India, just like we saw in China. But if we now notice this 2025 pyramid, it starts to stabilize. It starts to come inward. And so we could surmise that that India is transitioning from stage 2 to stage 3 over the next, right now to the next 10, 15 years. We see this kind of this Hershey kiss shape. That there's a very good indicator of a country that's currently in stage 3, with that kind of the straight, almost parallel sides there from age 0 to 25. We compare the previous population pyramid, and we can see in India every single generation is growing, and they're all growing at good amounts, except for there at the bottom. Like we said, like we can, this makes sense because birth rates are slowing, characteristic of stage 3. And so India, no wonder by 2050 will be the largest country population-wise. Stats, line graphs, and then rankings. Let's deal with India. What's causing such high population growth? First off, India is very rural still. It's one of the people that I know that came from India said, if you want to know India, you need to know the rural village. India is a land of many, many rural villages. And so with that, it has still more of a view of children viewed as economic assets rather than economic burdens. Further, you had a governmental plan by Indira Gandhi in which she was very, very forceful with her male sterilization program. So she wanted men to get cut up, and every single one was very, very coercive, and this led to her not being elected come the next election. And so because of this, politicians said, well, we're not going to go there. Obviously that was what led to her demise. We're not going to go there. And so they had this period where they didn't have any population control policies, which, obviously at the same time China was. Further, although people don't really realize it, India has a very large Muslim population. It's only about 10% of the population, but 10% of 1 billion is quite a bit. And the Muslim population disapproves of birth control. Another reason why we have high population growth here. The result with this is India is a very young population. We can see the population pyramids are fattest at the bottom, indicator of a very young population. But the thing about Indians, a very good, very effective education system, and they're very highly educated. And one of the things is you're seeing in India, especially now to the economic recession here in the United States, is you're seeing a brain gain. What they have is they have a lot of their best and their brightest go to Europe, go to the United States, go to the best schools in the world, gain their skill sets, and then take them back to their home village, to their home area, and you're seeing this what we call a brain gain, kind of bringing back a lot of that knowledge, and it's helping to then improve education in throughout much of India, as you have a lot of these skilled individuals coming back and sharing that knowledge. Further, you're going to have increases in population growth because you have so many young people, and young people are going to continue to have children, especially those in the 20s and 30s. Further, it's going to be, or currently already is, the world's largest democracy based on population numbers and characteristics of India. Is you're going to see some very interesting statistics, such as that how many smokers are there in India? About 120 million So you think the tobacco companies of the United States and Europe want to enter this market? Of course they do. But one of the things is that a lot of the smokers in India is going to cause a lot of individuals dying due to smoking-related deaths. It's about a 1 million a year, strictly due to smoking. Pretty large number. Now, finally, we'll take a look at Italy. We see in Italy has a very interesting shape to it. If we're going to kind of dissect it, we see this large female population. A lot of this is due to World War II, in which you had a lot of males simply dying due to casualties of World War II, and more women staying at home and surviving, obviously. Thus, we see in this age group, in this older age, many more women than men. But this is also characteristic of developed countries, stage 4 countries, in which women outlive men by a few years. And so we can compare sex ratios. And so very, very typical of developed countries is at the top having more women than men, and at the bottom having very balanced sex ratios. And it's a little bit more male than female, but compared to other places, it's much more balanced. And by 2025, it almost looks like an upside-down triangle. And so one of the things in Italy is you're seeing decreasing population, fewer and fewer young people, and more old people. Take a look at Italy. By 2050, there will be 14 million fewer Italians. Wait a minute. I thought Italians are known for their lovemaking and their passion, their romance. What's going on here? And we got a bar graph here that indicates that in Italy, you're going to see an increasing amount of the population over the age of 65 years of age as far as proportion. Italy today, there's 3 workers for every single person pulling a pension, so 3 of us are helping to support 1 person that's retired. By 2050, 1.5 workers will be supporting 1 pensioner. So now there's now only 1.5 of us, or just 1 of us, that's actually helping to support that 1 person pulling a pension. So in Italy, that's going to be definitely a big issue going forward, is how are you going to support them? We've identified some patterns. Now let's try to understand why they exist. First off, in Italy, we have an increase in the life expectancy, which is very similar to other developed countries. One of the things about Italy is the age of retirement isn't 62, it's 55. And so if you look at the percentage of males aged 55 to 59 that are working, much fewer than there were in 1983. And finally, with Italy, we have a fertility rate decline. One of the things, if for every mom and dad to replace themselves, they would have to have 2 children, and with Italian women having 1.2 children in their lifetime, it's much lower than that 2 number that would be necessary to replace. So that's going to cause a decreasing population if there's no immigration. Some reasons why women are marrying later, deciding to have children later. More women are working. So then thus having less children, choosing to have children later in life, once again. Further, maybe increased materialism, some would say. The idea that people are more interested in themselves, more interested in having possessions, having kind of built up things in their own life, rather than amassing a family. Other things would be financial burdens, and once again, the view of children as economic burdens. You have to put those kids through school. You have to pay for their school. You have to pay to feed them. I saw a statistic that said, right now, for a family to raise 1 child, it costs about $1 million from birth to when you kick them out the door at 18 or 30 or whatever. And so a very interesting quote. Here's the Italian finance minister, obviously talking Italian. And so what I did was I took this quote in Italian and I translated it with Google Translator. And this is what the Italian finance minister, keep in mind someone tied to finance and economics, we see the translation to the right, the Italian women must do more children. Obviously the translation wasn't perfect, but the idea is that the Italian women, he would argue, must have more children, because he sees this as a very big issue economically, having having a old age dependency ratio that is very much out of whack, where you have so many old people and so few people working. So it's very interesting that the finance minister is saying something that's very much tied to demographics.